Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Chatham Select Board meeting of January 31st, 2023. Let the record show the meeting started at 5:33 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's July 16, 2022 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31st, 2023, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as is possible. First item of business this evening is a roll call of the members of the Select Board. Mr. Metters?
Present.
Mr. Shell?
Present.
Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Nicastro?
Present.
And Mr. Dykens, the chair, is present as well. The next item on our agenda are the movement and the second of the minutes of January 24th, 2023. Mr. Shell's moved. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Items for edits, discussion, notes. I know that Mr. Shell submitted his nits already. We thank you very much for that, Mr. Shell. Okay, a vote. Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nicastro?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. And the next item is our public announcements and agenda item requests. Any public announcements? I believe Mr. Metters has an announcement this evening, and Jill, then to Jill. Mr. Metters.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not quite the first of the month, but close enough for me. This is a current list of the vacancies on our various board, committee, and commissions, and I'm going to highlight one particular one this evening along with the entire list. But Aunt Lydia's Cove Committee, 1. Cable Advisory Committee, 1. New one, Cape Cod National Seashore Advisory Committee. We have 2 openings, and we are being asked to make an appointment within the next 30 days on that one. So anyone interested, please, reach out to us, and we will set up interviews. Committee for People with Disabilities, 2 associates. Conservation Commission, 3 associates. Cultural Council, 1. Economic Development Committee, 2. Energy and Climate Committee, 2. Historic Business District Commission, 1 alternate. Human Services Advisory Committee, 1. Local State Building Code Board of Appeals, 4. Open Space Committee, 1 alternate. Pleasant Bay Alliance Representative, 1. Public Ceremonies Committee, 3. Railroad Museum Group, 2. South Coastal Harbor Plan Committee, 1. Traffic Safety Committee, 1 alternate. Wastewater Intermunicipal Agreement Advisory Board, 1. Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 associate. Members will serve 3-year terms. Associates and alternates serve a 1-year term. To note, non-resident taxpayers are eligible to serve on advisory committees, the Cultural Council, and the Council on Aging Board of Directors. Only those registered to vote in Chatham are eligible to serve on regulatory and statutory boards and commissions. All interested parties are encouraged to apply to the office of the town manager or by completing the talent bank form found on our town's website. So anyone interested in serving, we would welcome your expertise and your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metters. Any other public announcements from the Select Board? Any from the folks here in person? Jill.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
recognize
Chair.
you, Jill.
Yes, thank
Jill
you.
Goldsmith.
I just want to announce that this Saturday, the transfer station will be closed due to forecasted extreme temperatures. So Saturday, February 4th, closed, but we will be open Friday and Sunday afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Closed Saturday. I know somebody will forget, as we all do. Wednesdays are tough. Anybody else with a public announcement? How about agenda item requests? Any agenda item requests from the board? I see a couple hands raised. I see CEB raised. Guest, CEB, with an announcement or an agenda item request.
Yes, hi, good evening. It's Carol Bliss. I would like to request that the Select Board advise the Airport Commission to have their meetings go hybrid so we can attend them. I've requested it of the airport commission several times, and it doesn't seem to happen. And I think it would be very beneficial for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bliss. Anybody else with an agenda item request, either online, in person? I see none. Okay. On to public comments on our business agenda. We have a busy business agenda this evening. We have the gift of land by Bill Marsh at 1610 Main Street for a Council on Aging facility, potential Council on Aging facility. We have a referral of proposed zoning amendments pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5 on the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. A reference to the planning board for a public hearing. We have a film permit review process requested by Selectman Davis. We have a review of the budget for the natural resources operating and capital budgets. We have a discussion on how we're going to go about funding or actually spending the funds from the American Rescue Plan, the ARPA funds designation, with some assistance by our finance director, Alex Halila. And then we also are going to announce a Monomoy Regional School District vacancy. So I'll recognize Mr. Messina, and then another hand over here, Mr. Kokolas.
Good evening. I wanted to speak to the first item on your agenda, the gift of land by William Marsh, 1610 Main Street, and the potential for the Council on Aging facility. Yogi Berra, right? Deja vu all over again. And I think this is phenomenal that the town of Chatham, which unanimously, at least in my opinion, want some kind of a Council on Aging. They want it somewhere. I think the fact that at our last vote at the town meeting, which was a rainy day, and we weren't sure whether it was a meeting, not a meeting, it was outside, it was not a good time in COVID. I think the community will support this, and I think it's just wonderful that the Marsh family and Bill himself is going to give us another chance with a donation for a piece of property, which is probably worth close to $1 million now, and give us a chance to make this happen. I still remember when we were talking about a Council on Aging, and then they said, well, okay, let's put that off. We're going to do the firehouse. That was first. Okay, we're going to do the firehouse. And we did the firehouse. And then after that, I think, well, the council, well, okay, we're going to do the police department. All right, let's do the police department. And we're going to do the annex. So I think, it's obvious that something needs to be done. And I think this is the ideal site. And the fact that the West Chatham area has become so vibrant, with the new roundabouts, I think a lot of the nonsense is quieted down, and I just hope that we can all united go to town meeting with a proposal, and we can move forward on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Mr. Kokolas.
Hey, good evening.
Welcome.
It's nice being here without a jacket. Thank you. Good evening. Peter Kokolas. I'm speaking on two agenda items. One is the COA, and the other is the Chatham Protective Bylaw, West Chatham Protective Bylaw. Bear with me. I'm going to, maybe a little bit too much, make the case for the West Chatham. And I'll do it with some of the notes that I had from that I gave at the annual town meeting. So let me start first with the COA. I am encouraged by the continued generous donation of 1610 Street by Bill Marsh for a new senior center. We have experienced years of comprehensive studies, exhaustive reviews of location options, public forums, and endless debate. We know a new senior center design design and function must meet and reflect the growing requirements and numbers of our aging population. Simply, to put it down at first, the available senior center proposal for 16 Main Street is the best, I believe, cost-effective option for a new senior center, given its engineering detail, design specification, cost standards, and favorable location. I see this as a real opportunity, following with what Frank said. And I know Politically, there seems to, you could have a problem with it. However, it's trite to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Let's not allow the would-be perfect to be the enemy of the excellent. Not the good, but the enemy of the excellent. A few functional considerations. The requirements of the original 1610 proposal really need to be reviewed again. And I believe an input by the COA Board of Directors is warranted, as is noted in your staff report. Cost. Cost is going to go up. You can expect it to be higher. Fiscal reality may require design options and compromise. And what I'm thinking here is an adult daycare center. We reviewed that at least the 2 working sessions that I was at. We all think it's necessary. The cost and need was an issue, and that has to be addressed in this one, which you obviously will probably do. And then size. Size is always too big. But let's look at the COA history. It was reduced from a fully included need-determined study from 14,000 square feet down to 12.5 thousand square feet, then down to 1.65 thousand square feet, and then for 1610, 10.5 to 11K. You know, and so the question becomes, well, how is size determined? And is that really too big or too small? And usually we follow best practices. And they have to have a balance between those practices. First of all, and most important, is the present and future number of Chatham seniors. Then the need to serve caregivers and family members that require flexibility, configured rooms for exercise, educational, and social needs. The need for a multi-purpose room, it really is the heart of a senior center that provides adaptable meeting space. We have to understand that building codes generally account for 40% of the total space. So when you start reducing, when you get to a point where you're down, let's say around 10,000 feet, and you cut out a room that's 1,000 square feet, you're not going to get 10% cost back. You've got an infrastructure that you have to worry about. And the final thing is fiscal constraints, which I always love, because we always have to worry about that in business. So having said all of these, fiscal constraints the reality of what we can do with a budget is quite important. So why do I think West Chatham proposal is special? I'll give you 9 reasons. It is in a prime location with multiple commercial and residential uses. It provides for easy access for autos and pedestrians, meeting all ADA handicap compliant requirements. It is on sewer and the CCTA bus routes. Parking meets the most stringent walking distance requirements. There is green space, pond views, easy access to conservation land, and walking paths. I still remember the number of people that stood up and said 1610 has no place to go to walk. It's sitting right next to a conservation land, for God's sakes. It complements functionally and in design the existing West Chatham neighborhood and could be available for other municipal, citizen, or emergency uses. That's my opinion, Jill. It provides an anchor to the town vision for West Chatham to become a vibrant, it's not vibrant now, become a vibrant, walkable, mixed-use neighborhood, and coincidentally, the protective bylaw that's on the agenda today is the first step in that direction. And 1610 is a previously disturbed site, it's a disturbed site, which means the senior center will have little, if any, environmental implication in that regard. And you can't say that about some of the other options that are available. And finally, it does have growth potential without increasing its footprint or its size. It's all internal. So having said all that, I think this provides a solid background for an opportunity to move ahead. We don't need another working group. You know, I was on 2 of them. Or considerable funds required to reach the same level of detail available with the 1610 proposal. And I don't know how much that would be now. We started with $175,000 back then. And please accept the donation and move ahead quickly to provide seniors with a much-needed functional design center. That's what I have to say about the COA. Thank you for that. I'm going to have just a few comments on the West Chatham Protective Bylaw. You know, there's a long history of studies and public meetings and discussions by many planning boards getting to this position. We were able to get a a neighborhood center at South Chatham. And we were moving it ahead at the time when I was on the planning board with trying to work West Chatham. Then we realized we had a real, more, you should say more important, but a higher priority, and that was, and that happened to be housing and affordable housing. And we turned our efforts to that and to ADUs to start with, okay? I'll tell you one thing I found, you know, watching the planning board. I mean, it's impressive to watch the group that's there, and also our community development staff. You know, I call it the civil discourse, the thoughtful, critical thinking, and open approach taken. They address issues head on. They argue. You know they have differences of opinion, but they do it very, very well. You know, I plan to provide my specific comments on the proposal. I don't agree with everything during the public hearings. But I don't want to burden the board here with my thoughts, since your vote is to formally advance the bylaw request to gain public input. You know, that proposal may change. If you remember, 3 of you on the board may do, because I remember the questions you asked me when I first came here on ADUs back 4 years ago. No, 6 years ago. It had to be 6 years ago, something like that. And there were all that was asked is to bring it back to the board, to the planning board, so you could have public input. And we had a number of people that spoke, rightfully so, that's fine, against the whole idea. And I remember one person standing up and saying, this is a social experiment. And that, to me, I've never forgotten that, because that shows, you know, it shows not understanding the real issue that was happening at the time. So I believe the draft protective bylaw is a start with a thoughtful approach. It addresses the present and future neighborhood center requirements, and it deserves to be reviewed in detail in the public. And I urge you to refer it back to the planning board. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Thank you. I've got hands everywhere here. Mr. Levitt, and then over to Ms. Timpson, and then Barbara, and then that gentleman in back. Jim Fenton, yeah. Mr. Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Rick Levitt. My wife and I live in West Chatham, very close to the West Chatham Center. I was thrilled when I learned that Bill Marsh renewed his generous gift of 1610 Main Street. I was thrilled not just for our seniors and COA staff. They certainly deserve a modern facility. I was thrilled for what this means to our town. A center for active living belongs in an active center. Today's shared vision for West Chatham Center, as Peter just mentioned, is an active, vibrant, year-round, walkable village center. Bill's gift is a gift to all of us who take pride in Chatham. What better way to show our pride than to showcase a major municipal building on Main Street where everyone can see it and admire it? Yet there's even more to this generous gift. Besides bringing activity, a center for active living will be a spark that ignites the revitalization of West Chatham Center. We've made progress in recent years, but there's more to do. Perhaps little noticed, again, as Peter pointed out just a moment ago, on the agenda tonight, immediately following acceptance of Bill's gift, is acceptance of the planning board and planning staff's major revision to West Chatham Center zoning. The advanced form-based code is designed to achieve the shared vision of an active, vibrant, year-round, walkable village center, including housing that meets the needs of Chatham's working families and individuals. These 2 agenda items, land for a center for active living and revised zoning, complement each other complement each other in dynamic ways, opening new and exciting opportunities for all of us. Thank you, Bill, and thank the planning board and the planning staff for their efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt. Okay, thank you, Rick. Ms. Timpson?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm speaking on the COA issue. I'm Ann Timpson, Chatham, Mass. I'm here tonight speaking not just for myself, but for many Chatham citizens. We thank Mr. Marsh for his generous offer to gift land to the town. There is no question it would be an ideal site for affordable, attainable houses. The town has already spent millions purchasing land for this purpose, and we are thrilled to consider it for this use alone. However, the contract agreement and the means by which it was garnered raise great concern. Chairman Dykens and Select Board Member Davis, along with Town Manager Jill Goldsmith, may have essentially directed us to another town meeting vote on 1610 as a site for a new COA building. This seemed to be accomplished behind the scenes at meetings that we didn't know about with the owner or his representative. The appropriate avenue for these discussions would have been in the Select Board executive session. The public was kept in the dark, and all Select Board members were not included in the negotiations. The wording of the contract is unacceptable as it disregards a previous town meeting vote against 1610 for the COA site. Our town meeting government process allows us to guide our elected select members, and it is their job to listen and represent our decisions on warrant articles. Before any vote for acceptance of this land gift, we request that a public hearing be scheduled and that the option of carving out a new gift agreement without the COA contingency as the first step in gifting be presented. We suggest that two options are included and the town be given the opportunity to speak out on which option they prefer. We request, of course with Mr. Marsh's consent, that the gift agreement be altered to offer two options: the use of land for COA, or two, the use of land for affordable, attainable housing, eliminating the contingency clause that absolutely requires a resurrection of last year's vote on a COA site at 1610. We would be very grateful to Mr. Marsh if he would consider that either option would be fulfilling an important need within our town. Prior to the hearing and any vote or discussion with Mr. Marsh, these steps should be taken. A decision for option one, a new COA building, would first require investigating a smaller building design. Number two, requesting an up-to-date estimate of cost for construction, landscaping, permitting, and soil and other testing. Number three, request a yearly breakdown of the increase in the fiscal budget as a result of adding certified employees to supervise the new senior care center, including pension and health care payments. And number four, finally, an annual breakdown of the cost to taxpayers for debt service over the years. Also, design work on affordable, attainable housing at 1610 would also have to be accomplished before any vote would be appropriate. As to commenting on 1610 as a site for a new CO center, most of the citizens I talk with have made another choice: the community center with an addition on the back of the building. A design and feasibility study was never done for this concept. The cost compared to the 1610 Bargman proposal would be much more affordable to the town's taxpayers. The project would be more likely to gain approval from the Finance Committee, and it is time to put the fiscal brakes on and rethink size, site location, and cost for this capital project Affordable housing and future water and sewer projects will require millions, and they appear to be more essential. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Timpson. Let's see. Barbara Siegel.
I'm addressing all of you as Barbara Siegel personally. I think that 1610 Main Street is the perfect location for a new senior center. I was also part of 2 working groups. We do not need to rework the design, the specifications that were presented at town meeting. I personally recommend that the existing size and design are again presented to the citizens of the town, with only one exception, that one area be designed, dedicated as senior daycare, which is desperately needed. The existing COA senior center can be utilized for affordable housing. Moving ahead to start looking at other land and other feasibility studies and other working groups, we're talking about having a new senior center in 2035. We have a plan. It's in place. We do not need to redesign. We do not need to spend money on feasibility or working groups. Let's just move ahead and present it again. We only lost by 93 votes for a 2/3 majority. We did have a majority vote. And it's so hard to explain to the citizens, some of them in the town of Chatham, that it was going to be funded with a bond, like a mortgage, over 30 years. And it was going to cost a citizen in Chatham whose house, I think, was valued at $100,000 assessed value. It was going to cost them 17 cents a day. 17 cents. You know, that UMass study that recommended 14,000 square feet, it was based on the needs and the programs that exist. Well, the need has gotten larger. We're even offering more programs. We desperately need this. Please. Thank you, Bill Marsh.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel. I have Mr. Fulton back there, and then Pat.
Good evening, members of the Select Board. My name is Jim Fulton. I live on Lakeshore Drive. I moved to Chatham full-time in 2019. And when I did, I learned that a lot of people in and out of government had worked for quite some time on the concept of a revitalization of the West Chatham neighborhood. And I'm basically up here to say that I agree entirely with what Barbara said, who has studied the project intimately. And I think the Council on Aging facility is an important, integral part of the revitalization of West Chatham. And I also appreciate the point of view of those who have been opposed. I think that all of us, like these people here, should treat those people with civility and respect. But I'm in favor of this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton. Pat Burke.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting the interview. My name is Pat Burke, and I'm speaking as a citizen, but in the interest of full disclosure, I'm the chairperson of the Chatham Council on Aging. I have volunteered at the Chatham Council on Aging for as long as we've lived here on a full-time basis, which has been since 2017. I volunteer as a Shine counselor there, and what I see, I think, would surprise many people. But there are many people within the town of Chatham that have great needs. I look at the Chatham Council on Aging as a service organization. I believe it is most important. I believe we serve the senior community who are kind of behind the scenes, and we don't know about those people. We just don't know about them, but they're there. I can tell you that. I've worked with, whoops, pretty disruptive tonight, Jeff.
It's all right, Pat.
I've worked with Ann on many projects, and I respect Ann's opinion. I just think that the time has come. The time has come to say, we respect the Chatham senior community, and we are interested in giving you what you need. I've never met you, Mr. Marsh, but I would like to thank you for the magnanimous gift. And I am just overwhelmed that someone would give this amount of land to the town of Chatham. So really, please think about it hard. The COA board, I can come back and talk about them after we meet, and but this will meet the needs. We're serving the needs of the Chatham seniors. I think that always gets lost in when we talk about how big is the building, where should it be, is it going to be here? What we need to remember is the current building does not meet the needs of the Chatham seniors, so we need to meet them. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I have a bunch of folks online here. I'm going to go down the line. Anybody else in person that wants to speak? Okay, first up is, I think it's Carol Gordon, Carol G. Carol Gordon, your hand's raised?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Carol, we can.
Okay, thank you. With all due respect to Bill Marsh and the COA, I realize the Council of Aging does need a new building. But I was wondering, 1610 was voted down at town meeting. And I was wondering who decided that we should bring it back and revisit it again? Why didn't the vote at town meeting hold up? We had this with the Rotaries, and now we have it with 1610. I don't understand, if we have town meetings, why our votes aren't supported. And if this is just the beginning, do we revisit other votes that were taken, and maybe someone has a different opinion or something, and they want to bring it out again? Is this going to be a continuing practice, that the votes that are made at town meeting are not really definite votes, that we can revisit them at any time? And if you could, I'd just like to, if you take a moment just to address this question and maybe give, I'm sure I would appreciate it, and I'm sure members of the public would too. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I will speak to that for a moment. We've been looking for a site for the COA now for quite some time. We turned $1 million gift at town meeting down. And since then, what have we done? We've cast about looking for a home for the Council on Aging and have come up empty. And then out of the blue comes the re-gifting of a piece of land that is a prime piece of land for this facility, for this town. Why would we turn that gift down twice? I think we'd be foolish. I think, as a member of the community and as a select board member, we'd be foolish to turn that gift down twice. It is a perfect location for a new COA. We have tried Middle Road. We have tried stepping stones, or considered stepping stones. We have looked at Marconi at 2 different places. We've looked in every nook and cranny in this town for a home for the COA and have not found one. Lo and behold, on the 23rd, Bill Marsh offered us a gift of land, arguably $1 million gift of land to this town. Why would we turn it down? We shouldn't, we shouldn't, we shouldn't. So that's the history. That is the history. We are looking for a home, we're looking for a home for the COA, and goodness gracious, because of the generosity of Mr. Marsh, we have at least the possibility to consider 1610 again. And I believe that's pennies from heaven, manna from heaven, pennies from heaven. I'll cease there. But if anybody else wants to speak on the select board to that question, I'll be glad to have them speak. Anybody else like to speak? Ms. Davis. Ms. Davis wants to speak.
Thank you.
Hold on.
I don't want to start deliberating the issue because
No,
we
no,
are in the
we'll have
public
our own-
comment period,
oh.
but it seems that some folks, and there was some sort of convolution that was going on here. There was nothing wrong with what occurred. We had a meeting on the 23rd, and Mr. Marsh came in and he offered generously 1610 again. And I concur with Jeff. Why would we turn this down? It doesn't make any sense. This has been the gold standard for us, as we've talked about many, many sites. And we're given the second chance, we're going to take the opportunity.
You bet. Okay.
Well, excuse me, oh. Excuse me?
Carol?
So, okay, I appreciate your thoughts and taking the time with this, but I'm still wondering, the votes that we make at town meeting, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't take Bill Marsh's suggestion and his generous gift, but I'm just saying the votes that we make at town meeting, I feel should mean something. Will this go again to town meeting?
I believe Mr. Shell wants to speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Gordon, I just think, I mean, just from a very technical point of view, I agree with everything my colleagues have just said, but I think town meeting from year to year or from 5 years to 5 years, I think has to have the option, the flexibility to readdress questions that have been presented to it before. And in particular, I mean, I would note that, although I don't think it's really significant to your question, a majority of the people who voted in favor of accepting the gift the last time. But I think the real point here is circumstances can change. There are all different kinds of factors that would legitimize the need for being able to go back to town meeting with a proposal that's substantially similar to something that did not receive the requisite vote the last time, and I think this is one of those cases.
So this will go back to town meeting.
Well, first, we're going to hear back from the Council on Aging, and then it's likely we'll be drafting a warrant article, yes, probably. But it's up to
Thank you.
votes, it's up to input, it's up to votes, so obviously we have a lot of process yet to go through, Carol. So,
I appreciate.
yep, the next one I have is CEB, I believe that's Ms. Bliss again. Ms. Bliss? Maybe that's a carryover. The next one I have is Gloria Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to address item 4, gift of land. Excuse me. My concern tonight has absolutely nothing to do with the COA, with affordable housing, or with any other municipal use of the land at 1610 Main Street. It has to do with respect for town meeting, for process, for citizens, and for each member of this elected board. At least 2 members of this board were not advised about this issue until the day of the meeting. The meeting that we are told was requested by the proposed donor, who also got to decide who would attend the meeting. Why was that his choice? The vice chair of the board was not invited, nor was the select board liaison to the COA. 2 important players in this process. Why did it happen this way? Why was it so important that this issue be kept secret from 2 or maybe 3 of our elected select board members? Clearly, there had been previous discussions. The meeting was planned, of course it was, because the proposed donor signed the contract the same day of the meeting. Undoubtedly, papers were going back and forth. It doesn't feel right. It isn't right, and it is disrespectful of your members who were not aware of what was going on. The question is, why was it important to keep the issue from members of your own board and to spring this meeting on the public so suddenly. It is also disrespectful of a town meeting vote held less than 2 years ago. Of course, the COA at 1610 can be brought back to town meeting. Of course it can. But why drop this on us with no warning, no inclusion of the full board, and no process except to accept land that town meeting turned down? Again, it just doesn't feel right. I hope there will be no vote on this until the public, after hearing a complete recital of what has occurred and discussion of this issue, has an opportunity to formulate and ask questions, state its concerns, and receive definitive answers. I'm not saying that the land should be turned down, but there should be a process. Thank you.
And thank you, Gloria. I have Elaine Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking on 1610, the Main Street gift as well. I appreciate the response from Town Council that I believe you all received, and apologize if my questions regarding the agreement and legacy conditions weren't clear. My questions and comments tonight, there's two primary areas relate to them, not the size, cost, or location of the Council on Aging. The legacy condition number 4 states that, quote, as the needs of the town evolve, the property may thereafter be used for municipal purposes. Municipal purposes in the agreement is not defined, or in the legacy conditions. If I understand correctly, Town Council's response was that if the Council on Aging was no longer needed, the property could be sold for other municipal purposes, not any purposes. I interpret that way because Town Council further stated, quote, a declaration by the Select Board that it is no longer needed, and I assume that means the Council on Aging, would require a 2/3 vote by town meeting to change the municipal purpose. I believe that also means that if the Council on Aging is no longer needed, the Select Board could use the building for some other municipal purpose, or use the funds from the sale for another municipal purpose without coming to town meeting. And I'd like to know during the discussion if that is accurate. And if it is, either municipal purposes needs to be clearly defined within the legacy document or the agreement document, or we should not accept the property with that condition and restriction. Town meeting, and only town meeting, should decide what to do with the building or funds from its sale, not the Select Board. And the second one regards the agreement right to terminate, section 6. In part, it states, if 5A and B fail, the donor has the right to terminate the agreement. It does not say the agreement is terminated. What are the implications, if any, if the donor does not terminate the agreement? I think it should say, if A and B fail, the agreement is terminated. It also states, if 5A and B fail, town meeting will maintain zoning as it currently exists. I would like confirmation on that, considering you're now moving forward with the planning board potential bylaw for the area. Can you confirm that that statement where the zoning would remain as it currently exists, that it would not preclude or exempt this property from further zoning bylaw changes along that corridor? And I agree, I think it's premature to take any vote tonight until these questions are clarified. I think it's really important to find out what municipal purposes mean and who has the authority down the road should the Council on Aging no longer be needed. It's going to be a very expensive building, and I think town meeting is the only one that should decide what is to be done with it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. We're off to Susan Dim. Susan Dim. Thank you for your patience, Susan.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for letting me speak. As a resident and a business owner in West Chatham for over 25 years, I think that it's the perfect location for the Council on Aging. I think West Chatham is a vibrant community. I think it would be a perfect place for it to be. I want to thank Bill for revisiting this again because I think it's a really important issue. and he's an incredibly generous one. I wasn't able to attend the last town meeting, but I can promise you that I will attend the next one to vote on this. I think that, as I've always said, West Chatham is best Chatham, and where else could you put a senior center where you could be walking distance to 3 different pottery shops? I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So I am totally in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan Dim. We have, was Leah's hand up at one point?
She asked if she could speak during the item.
Okay, all right,
Staff
okay.
member.
And then I have a James Azanaro. James?
Yes, this is Ann Azenauer speaking. I'm a resident here in West Chatham neighborhood, and I wanted to thank the Select Board for their time and a generous thank you to Bill Marsh for his donation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Brevity is wonderful. Mr. Wilson, Tom Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know that I'm going to live up to the brevity comment, but I believe 1610 is the perfect location for a new senior center or center for active living. I mean, our seniors have significant needs, and a new facility is certainly at the top of that list. And in terms of the West Chatham neighborhood zoning amendments, while I support the majority of those zoning amendments, and I support multifamily and greater density, affordable and attainable housing options, the proposed RPZ footnote amendments are a cause for concern. RPZs are danger zones. We've known that for a while. We need to figure out a fair and just way to mitigate the RPZ safety risks in West Chatham. The fact that for decades the town failed to protect the lands within the RPZ does not mean that this oversight should continue in perpetuity. Passenger vehicles, walkers, cyclists on Route 28 in West Chatham are all at risk by being inside our RPZ. The homes on Agnes Lane are inside our runway protection zone 24/7, 365. This is unacceptable. It doesn't have to be that way. These safety risks can and should be mitigated. Shouldn't we be doing everything we can to preserve the value and equity owners have in their properties? I believe these RPZ amendments will do just the opposite, devaluing the homes and businesses while also failing to mitigate known safety risks. I feel an independent, fact-based RPZ safety analysis whose goal is to bring about better compliance with FAA safety guidance is needed before any RPZ zoning is updated. Let's evaluate the alternatives that would prioritize the safety of our townspeople, our school children, our emergency personnel, and our neighborhoods. RPZs are danger zones. If our goal is to have a true neighborhood center, then public safety must be a priority. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Anybody else online? I don't see any other hands up. Okay, that concludes our public comments on our business agenda this evening. Mr. Metters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably could have saved myself a little bit of time by making this statement earlier, but this statement is in regards to the next couple agenda items. While 1610 Main Street.
Okay, so I'm gonna shut it off. I'm gonna leave the name.
If someone has their mic on, would they please turn
Mute.
it off? Dio, David, thank you.
All right. While 1610
Can you
Main
hear me?
Street is not a new topic, my status has changed. And in full transparency, I have a pending acquisition of a business in the West Chatham area. And as a precaution, I consulted with the Ethics Commission. We went through the whole gamut of details, and it is in the best interest and my duty on this board to recuse myself from any discussions in the West Chatham area at the moment. For any reason this deal does not go through, which I hope it does, I would exercise my right to re-engage in any conversations, deliberations, and future votes on West Chatham topics. So at this time, I'm going to recuse myself, step away, and I will see you guys on.
Okay, Mr. Meadows, thank you very much. Okay, on to our formal business agenda. The first item is a gift of land by William Marsh at 1610 Main Street, West Chatham, for the use for a council on aging and other related considerations. And for this, I will turf it off to Jill for a second here, and then to the board and to Bill himself. Jill.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you see in your agenda packet, there's a staff report with also a land gift donation agreement that was provided by Mr. Marsh at a meeting on January 23rd. And the generous donation, I'd like to thank Mr. Marsh and Don Poignant for bringing this forward. Sorry, just lost my train of thought. So with that, they provided a donation agreement that is essentially the same donation agreement that we had considered back in 2020, updated for just recent dates. And similar to the 2020 agreement, there were legacy conditions, which I've also attached to the report, that provides that the gift of land is intended to provide the town with the location in West Chatham Neighborhood Center for a municipal facility that can anchor the neighborhood for the foreseeable future. And both the gift through the legacy agreement and the land donation is contingent on town meeting of May 6, 2023, approving the project, as well as a ballot question approving the financing for it. Also with that is, if it's based on the exact current design, it will require a zone change, and that too would be presented for the annual town meeting on May 6th. So those three actions would need to occur for the donation to be effectuated by the town. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the agreement. I know, as I mentioned, Mr. Marsh is here tonight, and I just, again, thank you, and thank you for your consideration.
Okay, Jill, thank you. I've been remiss. There is one other hand up here that I am going to recognize. I think he tried to get in at the last minute, missed him. It's Mr. Oppenheim. Your hand is raised. Hello, David. Welcome to speak. You need to come off mute, David.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. I'm very supportive of this going forward. As you know, I was part of the group that was opposed initially and wanted to see the discussion of stepping stones, which was looked at and rejected, and is now going to be affordable housing, which quite frankly I think is a more appropriate use. I think it's time to make a decision and put this to bed. I don't think the building should be redesigned, because any space that would be cut out of it would be relatively inexpensive space. I think it's great that Mr. Marsh has offered to continue his effort to donate the land to the town. And I also, there's been discussion, it hasn't been brought up at this meeting, somebody did mention affordable housing. I would also suggest, and maybe this is not the appropriate time, that there be a companion article as you go forward that dedicates that should this be approved at town meeting, and while the new Council on Aging building is being built, that we dedicate the existing Council on Aging for affordable housing, and have that designed while this is going forward, so that when the new Council on Aging is, when they move to the new building at 1610 Main Street, we will have a shovel-ready project at 193 Stony Hill Road, converting a building that we already own into perhaps as many as 8 two-bedroom apartments or whatever is appropriate at the time. It's in a residential neighborhood, and what I think this does is addresses not just the Council on Aging concern, but what I consider the foremost concern in the town of Chatham, which is affordable housing. So this project certainly has my full support. A lot of people that I've spoken to, especially younger people that maybe were on the fence about the Council on Aging before, would feel that they were getting something out of this also, which is addressing our housing needs, which is what I consider the most important need in the town of Chatham. So thank you.
Yes, David, thank you. Sorry I didn't see you before. I would have recognized you prior.
So it's my struggle with the computer.
Okay.
Thank you very much for recognizing me.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you much, David. Okay, back to the board now. We're going to go around the horn here, and I will ask Mr. Marsh to speak after we get done with our comments, but we'll start with Mr. Shell. Michael.
Thank you. So I could go on at quite great length here. I will try to be economical. I want to start by saying personally, and as a member of this board, I just am feeling deep personal and official thanks to you, Mr. Marsh, for this, and to your family. With respect to I'm moved here to mention the business about although I wasn't one of the important people that was left in the dark, I was another board member that was left in the dark. I think some people will recall, I certainly do, back in, I think it was in October, that I think it was when we had the feasibility report on the community center and the existing site, I said at that time, 1610 is the gold standard here, and we may not be able to do that, but we ought to measure whatever we do against that. And from that time forward, indeed before, I have been silently wishing and hoping for just this result. So when I heard that the meeting had taken place on the 23rd, I was thrilled, and I'm delighted to be here and speak my piece on the subject. I was also a great supporter of the warrant article in 2021. I was sorely disappointed that it didn't get the requisite 2/3. I want to reemphasize that not only did it miss by whatever the number was, 93 votes, it got a majority of the people who voted. And I think that's a relevant consideration here. I also want to say to the people of Chatham, we are so lucky that Mr. Marsh has demonstrated the kind of magnanimity and generosity that he has in coming back a second time. You don't get those chances very often, and we have one this time, and I really hope that we will not fumble the opportunity this time. It's important. We've heard a whole bunch of different reasons why that's the case. The circumstances have changed. By the way, I'm not a believer in the notion that this necessarily will be a more expensive building, exactly the way it was proposed the last time. We don't know. A lot of things have happened in this economy, however, that are actually pointing in a direction that would suggest perhaps that it won't be more expensive, or if it is, it won't be that much more expensive. So I don't think that we ought to be just saying, well, we know that it will be, because we don't. I want to emphasize, and I'm sure I'll be accused that for either having had David Oppenheim write my remarks or my writing his remarks, this is really two gifts. It's not one. It's the COA opportunity here in West Chatham, but it is also the opportunity to go and convert the building over on Stony Hill Road to affordable housing, affordable, attainable housing. The basic point here is, call it what you will, it is a big step, that part of it is a big step in the direction of creating housing that we desperately need, that can be within the reach of all of the people we know need it, who are Chatham people. I mean, cops, fire people, firefighters, young people, young families, teachers, EMT, people who make our small businesses here in Chatham run, et cetera. That is a very much, in my view, a part and parcel of the opportunity that we've been afforded by this gift. And so I just want to say I really hope that we'll see what a phenomenal opportunity it is. I certainly am going to work very hard to make that come to pass, and that we will come out in May, on May 6th, and give this not only the requisite 2/3 approval, but a resounding approval, a resounding thanks for something that has been in the works here in Chatham, I understand, over the last 10 or 12 years. And it really is time. It's the only place where we're going to have this building in the, not only the foreseeable future, but, you know, this half of the 21st century. And we really need to just do it and move forward to some of the other things that we have to address, including, as David said, as we all know, affordable housing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shell. Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, Mike. That was well said. And I can't tell you how pleased I am with this donation. At the meeting, I was near tears with, you know, how grateful I was for Bill coming forward and donating, recommitting his donation to us. And the reason why I was is because there's not one time that I think that I haven't been out and about in the community, and I do network. That's a lot of things that I do, and I speak to people, and I say, I have made no bones that I thought 1610 was the best place for a senior center or center for active living. So I've never made any bones that that's not the perfect place. And as Mike had said, it's the gold standard that we had set our sights on. I've said it publicly in meetings here, and it's been my wish all along. So you know, we've been, and I do want to thank you again for your generosity. And this is an opportunity. I think what you had said, that this to be an anchor for the West Chatham neighborhood is really resounding. This is a game changer for West Chatham in the vitalization. You know, we've struggled to find this home for our elder community, who's really well-deserved. It's well-deserved that they need to, you know, about time that we get our act together and really move forward with something. And this is the best site. West Chatham, you know, has so much potential, and since the roadway reconstruction, you know, it's been easier for businesses. It's been great for traffic and safety. There's, as former select board member Kokola said, you know, we have conservation land there. There's great places to walk. There's restaurants, even, you know, 3 pottery shops. I think that's wonderful. But this also is an opportunity for economic development here. And when you have something as vibrant as a community center, senior community center, that this makes perfect sense. So, you know, I really wish to honor our senior community with this donation, because the Active Center, it supports health, you know, it's social services, it's educational, and with their programs, and supportive care for people in much need. I guess I've heard this saying that you don't know you need a senior center till you need a senior center. And as you know, I'm aging, and I think I have to do Medicare this year. I probably will be making an appointment with a Shine counselor to do just that, to find out all that stuff. But it's time, folks. I'm really supportive of this. Hands down, full stop. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen. Well said. Mr. Nacastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say up front, with respect to the questions that Elaine Gibbs mentioned, I did, as the town manager knows, facilitate getting responses from town council. I would request that those be posted on the town website. And with respect to one of the questions she asked about the potential for selling the property, I do think I could be corrected by our finance director that if a sale were to go forward, that money could not be used without approval of town meeting. It would sort of go into the general fund as part of our budgetary expenditures. Mr. Chairman, as everyone knows, I am the Select Board Liaison to the Council on Aging. I have been serving in that role for almost 8 years, much of it devoted to helping our seniors transition to a new headquarters, which they need. I previously advocated that we consider locating a new senior center, or Center for Active Living, as it is now called, where it is now. on 193 Stony Hill Road, largely because I thought that particular location would have the best chance of success at town meeting. Most recently, the COA board has been focused on a location at the former MCI property on Old Comers Road, referred to as Marconi 3. And without endorsing that concept, I have encouraged Pat Burke, the COA chair, to reach out to various parties of interest, including the Marconi Center Board President, the chairs of the Open Space and Finance Committees and the Historical Commission, the Friends of Trees, and another prominent local environmental conservation advocate. And she has done so. Site visits have also taken place, including one which I personally attended. I have also requested an update to the Select Board on the preliminary investigation of the Marconi 3 concept that staff has been conducting. But now we have this new development before us for the town to consider a renewed offer to donate the land at 1610 Main Street for the new senior center location. And I think as a select board, we have a responsibility to consider this offer seriously. As a result, there are two issues to be decided. First, whether to accept the donation, and second, whether to advance 1610 Main Street to town meeting. I very much appreciate Mr. Marsh's coming forward with this offer. And my personal thanks to you, Bill, and your family for graciously stepping up in this way to give back to our community. I will vote to accept the donation because I wish to honor Mr. Marsh's generosity and because the contingencies in the donation agreement do not obligate the town to do anything unless we want to go forward to town meeting with 1610 Main Street. I previously supported 1610 Main Street when it was first presented. I think it is an ideal location for the Center for Active Living, and I think it is unfortunate that Mr. Marsh has had to make this offer to us twice, because I believe that back in 2020, 1610 Main Street was headed for success at town meeting until Stepping Stones Road intervened. Nonetheless, this matter is before us a second time, and if the Select Board votes to accept the donation, I will then offer a motion to refer 1610 Main Street to the COA Board for a timely recommendation back to us. The COA Board will be having their monthly meeting on February 6th, and I would encourage them to undertake a thorough examination of the pros and cons, including any needed modifications to the building, the incorporation of adult daycare, the case to make before the Finance Committee, and the likelihood of passage at town meeting in May. Members of the public will have an opportunity to weigh in with their views at the COA's meeting and at a subsequent Select Board meeting. I am keeping an open mind about proceeding to town meeting and will take to heart what we hear back from the COA Board. I believe we have just one more chance to get a new senior center building approved at town meeting. So we need to proceed carefully and thoughtfully with the right proposal. Sending 1610 Main Street back to town meeting is a proposition on which there are likely to be strong differing opinions. I'm not prepared to endorse it just yet, but I will await a recommendation from our Council on Aging Board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Dean. Well said. You know, it's no surprise that I support certainly accepting the gift, and many, many thanks to Bill and his family for his generosity, not once but twice. I echo the sentiments of my fellow select board members, particularly Mr. Shell, on this is, we're getting another bite at the apple here. And what a wonderful location for our Council on Aging. After we have cast about and looked at every single nook and cranny in this town for a home for the Council on Aging. Well, this should be its home. This should be its home. So we got to galvanize interest and get a warrant article together and get the Council on Aging a new home. Mr. Nicastro and I toured the Council on Aging in their present site 6 or 7 years ago now, Dean, I think it was. And we were taken aback, markedly taken aback by the facility itself. It is just not, it's just not correct for our seniors. It's awful. So we need to provide them a new home that they can do their great work in, deliver social services, deliver health, deliver wellness, and to do all the great things they do in that center. I just can't, this lot in particular, it's on the bike, it's gonna be on their bike trail. The traffic's been rationalized, it's wonderful. It's got sewer, it's got water, it's large enough, it'll have parking. The building we've already designed here is a phenomenal design. And I would argue vehemently that we would include adult day health in the design going forward. I think it's critical to have that function in the building of the future. So I am 110% in favor of this, of accepting this gift and moving forward. And I do look forward, as Select Board Member Nicastro noted, to the Council on Aging or the Center for Active Living board to get back to us post haste, and I believe they're going to come back before our next meeting with a recommendation, and we can get this hopefully teed up for town meeting. It's time the town of Chatham approved this Council on Aging and on the site. So with that being said, I am going to turf it off to Mr. Marsh. He's here. I would like to have him come up and just say hi, and so we can have direct thanks. Bill, please come up just for 1 sec, please.
Honorable Select Board and our Honorable Town Manager. I want to say that this is a very happy moment for my family particularly and myself. My family and I moved here in 1970. I can't think of a better place to have ended up as a young man, and I can't tell you how much my family and I love the town of Chatham. I'm now recently blessed with 2 wonderful grandchildren, and it just means that much more to me. My 3 children were born and brought up here and educated here, and it just means so much to my family to have this opportunity to be able to donate this piece of property to the town of Chatham. It seems now like there's some real momentum here, and let's get this building built. Thank you.
Bill, thank you. Thank you not once, but twice, Bill. Okay, turf it back to the Select Board, Mr. Shell, and then Mr. Shell. We are, I believe, yeah.
May I, or should I defer to Dean? Dean, why don't you want to do it, Dean?
Happy to do it.
Okay.
Thank you. Is it written in? Here it is. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Select Board accept the donation/gift of land at 1610/0 Main Street, West Chatham, as presented in the January 23rd, 2023 land donation agreement with noted contingencies.
Second.
Super. Vote. Mr. Shell.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Nicastro.
Aye.
And the chair says a resounding aye. Thank you very, very, very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Mr. Nicastro.
I wish to offer a second motion.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to refer to the COA Board consideration of 1610 Main Street as the location for the new Chatham Center for Active Living, and request that they report back to this board on the 7th of February.
Second.
Thank you very much. Discussion, hearing none. Mr. Shell.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Nicastro.
Aye.
The chair says aye as well. Good luck, have fun. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Lots of great input. Thank you. Gonna let the room clear a little bit. Okay, the next item of business on our business agenda this evening is the referral of a proposed zoning amendment pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, West Chatham Neighborhood Center and R20 zoning districts to the planning board for a public hearing. Principal Planner Kristen Betty. Is that Ryan Kristenberry right there? Hi, Ryan, how are you? We can't hear you. No. Ryan, you're not on mute, but your audio may not be synced up or something. It's happened to me before. So just look at the software and see if you have to turn it, if it asks you to turn audio on. Sometimes it does that.
Ryan, why don't you log out and come back in?
How about now?
You got it. Loud and clear,
All right,
Ryan.
yay.
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome.
So good evening. I'm Ryan Kristenberry, your principal planner, here tonight to talk to you about the item on your agenda related to the proposed zoning bylaw amendments for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. At the January 23rd meeting of the planning board, the board voted to refer those amendments of the Chatham Protective Zoning Bylaw to you for a ministerial act, which is to refer those back to the planning board so they can initiate the public hearing process. There are 3 proposed draft articles. One is a draft article to establish the West Chatham Neighborhood Center zoning district, a second draft article to amend the zoning map to include the West Chatham Neighborhood Center district boundary, and a third draft article to amend the R20 zoning district and the schedule of use regulations to address land uses within the airport's runway protection zone, or RPZ. Town Council is currently reviewing the draft amendments as to form. The articles will be presented at a later date to the Select Board for comment, discussion, and possible recommendation to town meeting and inclusion in the warrant. The request tonight is merely for the ministerial action to refer the articles so that the Planning Board can hold the public hearing.
Okay, Ryan, thank you. Any comments or questions from members of the Select Board for Ryan this evening? Mr. Nicastro, and I have one as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ryan. I just had one question. I didn't quite understand something in the use chart on page 15. It's actually, yeah, page 15, the very last entry. It says one family dwelling, zones A1, A2, and Zone B. It's all not permitted. I'm not sure I understood that. Does that mean you cannot construct a new one-family dwelling, or what is this?
So I would advise that substantive discussion of the actual article be held to a later date. Right now, the action requested by the Select Board is just to refer the articles for a public hearing. There will be future opportunities to discuss, comment on the language substantively.
Respectfully, I think I can ask the question.
I think you can as well, Mr. Nicastro. In fact, I was going to ask the very same question.
Just really wanted to understand what it is.
Right. I think what Mr. Castro is asking, Ryan, is under Zone B, actually Zone A1, A2, and Zone B, what we're proposing, what this is proposing, is that you would not allow a one-family dwelling in any of those zones. It's the way I read it when I read it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You will hear voices of reason at a public hearing.
Okay.
In these days of no housing. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dean, I had the exact same question. Okay. All right. Okay, we do have a procedural issue. Ms. Davis.
All right, so since this is this review that we have before us will probably change coming back after the public hearing. I'm just going to make the motion.
Please do, yeah, and
Okay.
then we'll refer.
I move that the proposed protective bylaw amendments be referred to the planning board for a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Mr. Shell?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Yeah, and no substantive comments. We'll wait for the public hearing, but the chair of the board says aye as well. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep. Our next item is a film permit review process policy. This is an agenda item request by Select Board Member Davis some time ago pertaining to an issue down at the Trap Dock Pier. So
Old Mill Boat Yard.
yeah, Old Mill Boatyard, I guess, as well. So, and I think Police Chief Anderson is here to speak to the issue as well. So, Chief, why don't you come on up and to the podium, please? And I think Selectman Davis, Select Board Member Davis had an issue and wanted to know what the protocol was.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, board members. I'll start.
Yes, sir.
First, I apologize because the staff report that I forwarded to you guys has a typo in it. We did not process 120 film permits last year. That was a mistake. That was how many firearms permits we processed last year. The actual number of film permits that we processed was a whopping 5.
Okay.
So let me just clear that, and I apologize. So currently, the review process for the film permit, that process began in 2012, and I believe we were really at the onset of when Chatham became a destination for film crews. We wanted to make sure that all of the town departments were either made aware of, or these film permits, these film crews had the appropriate permission from these other boards of their areas of expertise. So the film permit was developed in 2012, and to be quite honest, we really haven't revisited it since then. And actually, it is a good time to revisit it because we have some new updates which I would like to share with you. But regarding the complaint, we identified the complaint, and that complaint occurred on or about July 17th down at one of the trap docks. So the way the film process works, currently, it's a downloadable form off of the police department website, or it is a hand-picked-up hard copy form at our dispatch. So that leaves the obligation for the film producer to either download it and hand deliver it, download it and mail it, download it and email it. And what we found in most, not that we get a lot of complaints, but the complaints we do get with the film permits, we find out that the film crews are not permitted, either because they chose not to get one, or they were just not aware. So looking at that, we've been working with town IT to change the film permit as it stands now to a fillable form. That fillable form will be similar to our recent Citizens Police Academy application. So that form application could be completed at any time, anywhere online. That payment could be made at any time, anywhere online. And once that form is sent, the most important part of that is the notification to police command staff. That way we can then disseminate the information to other town departments. This was not the case on that date and that incident you're referring to. They did not have a permit. They weren't aware of it. And then when they were told that they needed one, they were a little bit loose with the truth on whether they were going to return or move locations to a different town. So what we've done is we're in the process of making that film permit, like I said, a fillable form. So once that's submitted, someone in my command staff will get that notification, and we can forward that out to town department heads 24/7, 365. We're also going to try to move that film permit from where it lives now on our page on the town website to out front. So when you stop at the town website, it's going to be hopefully somewhere in the quick links, the quick access links similarly to the building permits or the shellfish permits. And like I said, we're working with town IT, and if it's not done, it will be done very soon. And I've recently had a conversation with the fire chief and community development regarding some recent updates to code compliance. So we might have to take that film permit and go a little bit further with it. For example, if the film crew needs to construct some type of props or temporary buildings, that's a building permit issue. If they use pyrotechnics, as some have in the past, even down as some type of construction equipment, for example, a welding equipment, that would be a notification to the fire department for a potential supplemental permit. So in the short term, I think that you raised a great point to reevaluate this, and we are doing that. I think the fact that when we change it to the fillable form and move it and then promote it, that'll get the word out better. And then we're gonna do some more homework on the fact that of the recent code compliance updates, which we learned of some of them as recently as today.
Okay, Ms. Davis.
Mike, thanks for the update on that, and I appreciate that you're taking a relook at it.
Yep.
It's pretty helpful, and I understand, that particular film crew, are they coming back this year? Have they applied for anything this year?
I don't know.
Because I've been hearing grumblings from people that they're headed back for a
If they-
6-week stint. You know.
If they do come back, they are aware that they have to
Okay,
go through
well,
the
that's
permanent
good to know.
process. Yes.
That really is.
Yeah.
So the reason why I brought this forward was, obviously was somebody brought that to my attention. But, I've had some experience with some of them feature films. The Finest Hours filmed at our dock. That was and it was filmed downtown. I had a business at the time downtown, and so I got to experience it as an abutter, dealing with the film crew, and also, reaping some benefits from the film crews in town as a private property owner. What we did see, and what I'm looking for to make sure happens is, that the film application is appropriate to what we need to know, and that we have some really good oversight when it comes to what's going on in town. Obviously, you guys do have your hands on it, but we just want to ensure the protection of local businesses, private properties, abutters, and whatever. And also that we're properly communicating to some of the neighbors and the stakeholders, especially business people and people that are going to be impacted. And one of the things that, in the summer, we're super busy at capacity, especially on the landings. But in the winter, we also have all this construction going on in town with the sewer thing. So we're a bit disrupted. And I'm not saying I don't want to see us promote, an economic, viable sort of industry. So I looked at some of the other towns. And basically what I did was Google, like filming in Provincetown, filming in Nantucket. And up would pop their respective things. And what I found interesting was they not only had an application, but they had a policy or a code of conduct. And they all and part of this included, responsible parties, and part of the application itself had responsible parties, insurance, a proper insurance, not only the production company but the location manager. And also in the application piece of it, what kind of filming they were doing. Was it a feature film, documentary? Was it a student film? And other things that would, sort of indicate the size of the crew and the onus that was going to put on everything. Also, some of them even asked for, which I'm sure you're vetting through the police department, the police details, parking and signage and mapping. But one of the things that Nantucket did was that they had the applicants sign a statement that they would comply with all the applicable laws of the town, and had dealt with the code of conduct policy. The interesting thing, other thing that Nantucket did was that they, and this you might like this, Alex, is that they charge a per day fee, that depending on the type of film, anywhere from $100 to $750 a day. So, if you've got a film crew here for 3 weeks, that, that's doing a television thing, it could be a $500 a day sort of.
As opposed to a $50 flat fee.
Yeah, as opposed to a flat fee. This is an opportunity, and I know both Select Board Member Dykens and the caster have been looking for sources of income. I'm not trying to impede the filming process, but what I'm getting at is, and I hope that you guys understand, is that, I'd like to see if this board would consider a future agenda item to establish a film policy and a fee structure going forward that, when you're ready to bring it back to us with your improved application process, that we can sync this all up and really have a cohesive filming policy for the town of Chatham.
Great, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Shireen. Yes,
That was a request.
It'll be an agenda item. Yep, gotcha. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Yeah, appreciate it. Any other comments or issues on the film? Corey?
No, just a brief one. I think, we've had the experience of other various films over the last, several years that we can definitely draw from. And basically, our goal is to figure out what's in the best interest of the community and protect ourselves. Because the finest hour film experience, it was very interesting. It was a lot of fun setting up the stores and into different themes and them shooting downtown. But on the flip side too, we also had all this fake snow that was blown around that ended up in the drains, ended up flushing into areas we really didn't want it to. So there's some little unforeseen cleanup that needed to happen. So, we learn from our experiences and figure out what's the best option for everybody. So yeah, I'm totally supportive of having a future conversation on this.
Super. Mr. Shell?
I endorse those thoughts, and particularly Shireen's comprehensive approach. The one thing I would add that I think is important to have in your policy and some sort of a contractual arrangement is a restoration obligation for damage, for whatever they leave out of place or otherwise not in the shape that they found it, and that would be part of this.
Super, so noted. Okay. All righty, thank you very much. Thanks, Shireen. Thanks, Chief. Okay, on to budget review of the Natural Resources Operating Budget. I believe Alex Halila is here, and Alex, thank you for being patient, being here once again. Take it away, Alex. Natural Resources, one of our most important departments. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe if you have any specific questions, Dr. Duncanson is attending the meeting virtually as well. But I'm just going to tee this off with the agenda report, as well as looking at the online budget book. For you, the Natural Resources Department begins on page 184 of the budget book. And there have been some changes since the budget book was first printed based on some of the items that you had approved. The short-term working group has recommended the additional health inspector / housing inspector, which is now incorporated into the health department. So that has changed some of the numbers from the budget book, but I've updated them here in the system so you can see them online. And we can print out different sections of the budget book for you for what has changed. But as we're working through the budget process, we're probably just noting the changes as we move along. So the Natural Resources Department right now is at $2,182,542. The memo says $539. That's just due to rounding, depending on which way it comes in. Again, that's an increase of 7.44% over the prior year or the current fiscal year 2023. Moving down, you can see that the bulk of the expenditures are for personnel. That's the green section. So personnel makes up the bulk of the expenditures for most of the town departments. And under Natural Resources, we have the Director of Natural Resources and then the different divisions. We have the Conservation Division, Health Division, Harbor Master, Shellfish, and Coastal Resources. And then we have a part-time environmental technician as well. I'll start off with the Health Division. And as stated, this is proposed to have, this was originally proposed to have 4 full-time people. It is now proposed for 5 full-time employees with the addition of that housing and health inspector for the short-term rentals. And as you might recall, when the short-term rental working group made their presentation, the board endorsed adding that position back in, where the town manager and I had put that on hold at the time when we presented the budget in January. So if there are any questions on that, I'll pause here. Nope, okay. So that's been added back in. So the health division is presented at $578,893. That's about 11%, just under 11% over the prior fiscal year. Again, personnel, the majority of the expenses. And I don't know if you have any particular items that you'd like to discuss on the spreadsheet, but you can see here where we've put the select board recommendation for the health and housing inspector back in the salary line item.
So Alex, it's just, but the 578,893 is the current number. It's page 188.
Oh.
Our numbers. Hi, Alex. So the number we have should be 578,893 on page 188.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. And as I said, we'll update these. We can print them out, or anyone can, if you wish to print out any section, you just click this little print button here. And then you put in your email address. I'll put my email address in. And then what you'd like to print out, you can come down through the different departments. And so I want to print out health. And then I come down to the very bottom and create digital budget book. Successful. And so that will send me an email link to this budget book, and I can just print out this one particular section.
Okay.
And as we move through and prior to town meeting, we will have a completely new budget book with all these updates. So if there's no more questions about health, I'll move on to conservation. And conservation has currently 4 full-time employees. And again, this is fairly much level funded to FY 2023. I believe the only increases in conservation are for the contracted salaries, step increases, and longevity increases. And there was expense line items decreased slightly based on our prior year actuals. So that's the reason for the 2.75% increase. I'll go on to Harbor Master now, which is the next one listed in your agenda item report. And as you might recall, this staffing level is 4 with 1 part-time employee. When the budget was presented back in January, we proposed, or the department had proposed, a marine mechanic. And we've had that on hold, and I believe that Dr. Duncanson has some additional information on that. That was received today, which is not in your packet, so I'll pause here for him to speak to that.
Okay, Dr. Bob, are you there?
I am, thank you very much. Yes, we had proposed a position of marine mechanic / assistant harbor master. And this came about because when we reviewed the existing staffing, we basically have 4 full-time staffers. We have the harbor master, the deputy harbor master, the mooring manager, and then the secretary or office administrator. And what we've realized is the mooring manager, because they are devoting most of their time to the mooring issue. As you recall, we do now have an online mooring renewal system, which quite frankly makes it a lot easier for the public because they can renew their moorings or their wait list online. But it also creates a fair amount of work in the office on the back end. You know, if somebody renews a mooring that they've had for years, it's relatively straightforward. It's when people don't renew a mooring for whatever reason, it then takes a fairly significant amount of staff time to go through the process of trying to assign that mooring to someone else. You know, we have wait lists in all our mooring areas, but there's certain requirements that, you know, when a mooring becomes available, we have to evaluate that mooring for the depth of water, the size of boat we can put on it, whether or not somebody will have access to be able to get to that mooring in terms of, is there a town landing nearby that's open to the public, or, is it a private property owner who has adjacent access? So all those issues. So it's not uncommon that while a mooring may become free in, say, January, at the end of January, when we complete the renewal process for the year, it may take until the summertime to actually assign that mooring to someone who meets all the criteria and is ready, frankly, to accept it. People get on the waiting list, but they may not have a boat yet, because they don't want to get a boat because they don't have any place a mooring to put it on. So, we may go to somebody and say, hey, we have this mooring available. Do you have a boat ready to accept it? And they may say, no, I haven't bought one because I didn't know I was going to be coming up. So anyway, it can be a long, involved process. In addition to that, we've tried to be more proactive in getting the mooring manager out on the water to review all the moorings, to remove derelict moorings, to make sure the right boat's on a mooring, et cetera, et cetera. So what we found is that has taken away significantly from that position's ability to do many of the other tasks that the Harbor Masters Division is responsible for. So by proposing this new position, we're basically returning that operational availability that we haven't had, over the last, say, year and a half to 2 years. One of the issues is, especially in the wintertime, we never want to send our boats out without 2 crew members for their own safety, but also the safety of the public that they're trying to assist. We found, especially with duck hunting, that the waterways are much busier, in the wintertime than they used to be. So right now, there's a heavy workload falling basically on the harbor master and the deputy harbor master, to respond to emergency situations. And I'm sure that this board is well aware of the fact, because we've been discussing it for several years now, that we don't have the Coast Guard resource availability that we used to rely on. So it's really falling on the local resources to be the primary first responder in many respects to maritime emergencies. So by proposing this position, it gives us that one additional operational position to backfill, to make up for the loss of the redirection of the mooring manager's duties. But it would also, by being a marine mechanic, one of the things that we've noticed in the last couple of years is our availability to get timely response from local marinas has decreased. They're just so busy with the recreational pursuits. In many respects, they are not able to just kind of drop everything and run over to Old Mill Boatyard to troubleshoot and hopefully fix, one of our boats when they're down. So what we found is, in many respects, we have to take the boat out of the water, put it on a trailer, take it over to the marina, and then potentially wait a week or 2 weeks till their mechanics can get to it. And that means we're down a resource, which puts potentially the maritime public at risk if they're assuming that we're going to be ready 24/7, 365. So we proposed this individual to have marine mechanic skills to but to provide that service when we need it on a regular basis. And the other thing that we're looking at this to do, and I provided some information to the town manager and the finance director earlier today that provide some details on this, is our shellfish department similarly has multiple boats. They don't necessarily use theirs 24/7, 365, but when they do need them in the spring, summer, and fall to get out to the flats and whatnot, our current shellfish propagation specialist / assistant shellfish constable, she had taken training a couple of years ago on maintenance and all of the engines. And so she's been providing that service for the shellfish department engines for a couple of years now. Well, as the board may not yet be aware, because we just found out yesterday, Rachel Hutchinson, our shellfish propagation specialist, is going to be leaving us to take a job with Barnstable County and the Sea Grant program. It is clearly, professionally, for her, it is a great opportunity. We are obviously very sad to see her go, but it is a good professional step up for her. And frankly, it may come back to help the town of Chatham in the long run, because she has firsthand knowledge of all the issues that she's been dealing with the upweller and grow out facilities. And she will now be in a position to bring resources from the county and from the Sea Grant program to bear on some of those issues. So, you know, while it's a great loss for us on a daily basis, in the long term, it may be a great help in trying to address some of the issues that we've come up with. But we will be losing her capabilities not only for the upweller, but also in the maintenance role that she's been playing on the boats. So having this marine mechanic position, we'll be able to use that person both for harbor master resources as well as shellfish department resources. And I know I've spoken quite a bit there, but I'm happy to answer any questions related.
Okay, I see Ms. Davis and then Mr. Nacastro. Thank you, Bob.
Bob, a couple of questions, because the mooring wait list, I thought you had to identify the boat you were going to use in the length. I mean, it looks like every wait list person has a boat and a boat length. So
right, they do, but you know, depending on exactly where the mooring is given up and is now available, we basically have to go down that wait list to see who's got the boat for the draft and the length and everything else that would fit that particular spot. And that can take time. And as I say, sometimes we offer the position to somebody and, you know, give them a period of time to get back to us. And they may say, oh, you know, I'm selling that boat and I'm buying a new one, or, you know, whatnot. For whatever reason, we don't always get an absolute or an instantaneous, yes, I will take that mooring. And sometimes they have to go down through that list till they finally find somebody to accept it. And it's amazing how long that process can take.
okay, so sorting the data and matching it and syncing it up to an area is not something that is pre-done.
Right. The mooring renewal program cannot do that. We still have to do that basically the old-fashioned way.
With an Excel spreadsheet or something.
Yeah, like I say, the mooring renewal package, it's great for the user, for the, you know, the person sitting in California or Florida that wants to renew, because they can renew online, they can pay online. But in terms of reassigning moorings, that is still a fairly labor-intensive process.
Okay. The other question I have is, instead of a marine mechanic, let's just look at it from the perspective that that's a specialized, you know, when I hear marine mechanic, I know Rachel did repairs on boats and engines.
Right.
Back of the truck kind of stuff. I understand that, but you're asking for a specific skill set here. And there's so many different types of engines and whatever. Have we standardized the engines that we purchase for the town of Chatham?
Yes, we
The
have been
outboards?
trying to standardize those over the years as we've bought replacements for that very reason, yes.
So in doing that, instead of a staff person or, you know, a marine mechanic, was there any consideration to do, to purchase backup motors so that if one is down, it can go to the shop? It might take some time, but you can simply replace the motor for the time being. And then, to me, that seems like it might be more cost-effective than having a staff person and having to have all those tools that you're going to need for specialized services on an outboard. I'm just thinking this seems to be a costly endeavor in comparison to what could be something a little simpler.
Yeah, we have looked at that to some extent. The problem is not all the boats have the same horsepower engines and whatnot. So, it's not like every boat has exactly the same engine type and horsepower where, we could keep, say, one on the shelf as a spare. The boats are all a little bit different in terms of what they have because the boats themselves are different. So in order to make that work most effectively, you might be looking at having 2-3 different types or sizes of engines available, which, as anybody knows, engines are not cheap. And to simply have that engine kind of sitting on the shelf for, a couple of years where you may use it once or twice, technology changes and whatnot. And the other side of that coin is we're not looking at somebody who would be devoted, full-time to the marine mechanics side. We're also looking at the operational side of that position. Having that other year-round body able to assist when there is some kind of an incident and we need to get a boat underway, we'd have an additional person that we basically used to have, but we no longer have as much availability in terms of their flexibility and all, because they're basically dealing full-time with the mooring side of it. So we're trying to replace that operational position and get us back to where we were, several years ago.
I can understand that. Just the other piece to this, because I'm just looking at what those costs could be. You're saying that we have different motors for different boats, obviously, different sizes for different size boats. That makes sense. You're trying to standardize the outboards and whatnot. But again, if you're going to hire somebody that's going to be a marine mechanic that's going to work on all these engines, what kind of computer programs and tools are we going to need to support that position?
Yeah, the information that I sent to the town manager and finance director earlier, we had provided some information, and I'm just pulling it up so I give you the accurate numbers. We had pulled up some information that the software to cover basically the three primary engine manufacturers that we have, the diagnostic equipment for Yamaha, Mercury, and Suzuki would be about $4,200 with a $550 yearly update fee that isn't necessarily required every year.
Is that
so the
each
startup
or is
cost
that?
for that software would be about $4,200. It's just like you take your car into a mechanic now. Nobody can do anything until they first plug in the software to find out what the issue is. And then, the rest of the tools that are required, with the exception of some, particular specialized ones, are pretty straightforward tools that the harbor master's office, already has for everything else that they work on, buoys and whatnot. So, we're not looking at a huge cost in terms of the equipment necessary for this position.
Was that $4,200 per engine per model, or was that $4,200 in total?
That was $4,200 in total for dealer level diagnostics with multiple manufacturers.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nicastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, just a couple of questions. Was this the same position that was previously presented at the department level and the town manager in her budget decided to hold back?
Yes, it is, because we were asked to provide some additional information in terms of the need for the specialized equipment, which we just talked about, and also some idea of what we're currently spending or what the current rates are at the local marinas. And just to give you a sense of what that is, Riders Cove Marina charges $135 per hour if you bring it to the marina, and if they come to your site to do it, it's $180 per hour. Nauset Marine, their shop rate is $155 an hour with an off-site rate of $190 an hour. And Outermost Harbor Marine has a shop rate of $130 per hour, and they currently do not offer off-site. So we'd really be restricted in, again, I say, what we've been running into is having to haul the boats, put them on a trailer, take them over to the marinas, and the average wait time for non-emergency service, so like to bring an engine in for just routine maintenance that, just like your car, you have to change the oil and do those kinds of things on a routine basis. During the spring and summer season, when all the recreational boaters are trying to get their boats done, it can be a 1 to 3 week lead time, to get an appointment at a marina to bring the boats in. And then, it may be in their shop for 3, 4, 5 days. So during that period of time, it's not available, for our use. Where if we had a mechanic on site who could, take care of that routine maintenance, in a couple hours, right at the dock or, potentially right up on the trailer, we'd have those assets back in the water and available much more quickly.
When this was first presented, I think there was some discussion that this position could also provide some service with respect to the Mitchell River Bridge. Is that still contemplated?
Yes, that is still contemplated, that this person would be the primary person to do the routine maintenance, again, oil change, and things like that that are required of the Mitchell River Bridge, where to do that now, we have to pull people from other Harbor Master Division work, setting buoys or things like that, to get that done. And this person, obviously would be much more knowledgeable about that than, people that we hire to primarily work on boats and run boats and things like that. So yes, we would be using this person to conduct a lot of the routine maintenance on the Mitchell River Bridge. Obviously, there's certain things like the electrical and some of the control components that we would have to continue to farm out to people with the appropriate licenses to work on those kinds of systems.
Okay.
But we have had conversations with some bridge firms and a maintenance contract with a qualified contractor would be in the tune of over $100,000 a year.
What's the proposed salary? Do we have that? Was it in the 60s?
61,000.
Yes, the proposed salary is grade 6 on the new scale, which is in the 60s.
And I'm assuming the harbor master is in support of this or wants it, or?
Yes,
reports to you?
yes, it was, yes.
And-
Clearly, it was his proposal originally that this was the most cost-effective way to address the needs.
And Jill, you're putting this forward to us as,
Not at this time. I just received all the backup information around 4 o'clock today. So we wanted to make sure that Bob could present it. And then Alex and I haven't had a chance to get together. So if you could take it under advisement, and then I'll
okay.
present a
So you're not
recommendation.
looking, okay, for a commitment either way from us tonight. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. I just got a couple, Dr. Bob. On the mooring renewals, we've bumped that up to the end of December now. So the harbor master's office is informed by the end of December who's doing what. And I can't, and just.
Well, actually, it's today.
Okay.
You can renew, the normal renewal date is December 31st.
Yeah.
But you can also renew through January 31st, then January 31st
Yep.
with the late fee.
Okay, so, but that, assuming I renew December 31st, that gives January, February, March, April, May to work down the mooring waiting list. And I waited 16 years for a mooring, so I can't imagine there's that much turnover every year. How many moorings actually turn? Huh? How many moorings aren't actually renewed?
Believe it or not, it's generally between 125 and 150 in any given year.
That aren't renewed? So
That are not renewed, yeah.
So we should be working that waiting list down pretty mightily then. Okay,
We do,
okay.
yeah, we do, but the waiting list, as you probably are well aware, the waiting lists in Chatham are huge.
Yeah, they are. And then.
And, not every, as I said earlier, not everybody on the waiting list has a boat that's appropriate, to the particular location that may be available. We may get a mooring that's not renewed, that's only in 4 feet of water. So, we can't put a sailboat with a 6-foot skeg or something like that at that location.
Right.
So, while the waiting list may be long, we may or may not have anybody who has a boat that fits a particular location. And that's what complicates the process, time-wise.
Right. On the mechanic, are these guys hanging around? Are these women hanging around? We can get them for $60K?
We will do our best. That seemed to be the rate that, the harbor master pegged it at. As you know, it's very hard to get anybody nowadays in any position. The best we can do is advertise and hope we get somebody.
Okay. And then when we talk about capital, I have a question on capital. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay,
Shireen?
Yeah, I guess this is just to you guys to consider what we're hearing is an operational personnel that's got marine mechanics background and hydraulic specialties too, because the bridge. So I just want to make sure that we understand that this is going to be a very, boutique sort of like person that's got all these specialties. Just want to note that.
Yeah, I didn't say it outright, but I think it's going to be a difficult hire. I will say that. Okay.
it's going to be a challenge.
Okay, what's
Okay.
next, Alex?
Yes, again, moving from the harbor master's budget, there are some increases just in the vehicle and equipment maintenance, the Mitchell River Drawbridge, and that we spoke about the trap dock ice machine maintenance when this was, I think, first discussed. So those are the changes. Again, none of this would be for any of this new software, or as the town manager mentioned, we just received the information today, so we just wanted, since Bob was here, to present it.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on to coastal resources. Coastal resources is basically level funded, staff of 1 with seasonal employees, and again, just an increase for contractual salary line items and longevity, as well as some adjustments to the seasonal rates. Again, we always look at seasonal rates across the board to make sure that we remain competitive. The shellfish division, 2 full-time staff and quite a number of shellfish constables, so seasonal, up to 10 seasonal employees. Again, this is level funded, just with contractual increases and longevity, and a small increase for vehicle and equipment maintenance. And then moving down, we just have the Pleasant Bay Alliance, which is requesting an increase for FY 2024. It's funded by the 4 towns, and Chatham funds 35% of the budget, and we're the fiscal agent for the Alliance. And then the other committee budgets under natural resources are just the committee budgets, and those are level funded and basically cover the cost for minutes and minor expenses. So if you'd like to move on to capital now, that's probably where the bulk of the
What page are you on, Alex? Sorry.
the capital begins on page, get back there, page 361.
361. Thank you. Thanks.
So under natural resources, we have a couple of items. The Fish Pier Packing Building roof replacement for $25,000. And that's just what it is, replacement of the Fish Pier Packing Building roof. And then the annual appropriation for our stormwater management, the MS4 for $50,000. And that's, you've seen that previously, that's an annual request.
And if I may?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just for full clarity, the Fish Pier Packing Building roof replacement, we are not replacing the roof for $25,000, but that is to supplement the funds that we got last year at $65,000. And obviously with the cost of everything going up, that was an insufficient amount to get the job done. So we're asking for an additional 25. We're planning to put that project out to bid this spring when weather warms up a little bit, because we don't want to, because of the stormy nature of the winds down in that location, we want to do that roof project when it's warm to make sure that the shingles all, adhere well to each other. So that $25,000 is to supplement funds we already have for that project.
Thank you, Bob. I should have mentioned that in the book. I'll make that note. And then moving on from that, there's an annual appropriation for $10,000 in conservation lands management. The Conservation Division is seeking $35,000 to replace the division's vehicle, the conservation truck. And then we have a request under coastal resources, $400,000 for dredging. $100,000 of that is in the capital budget, and an additional $300,000 will be presented as a standalone article at town meeting, as we've done in previous years.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. DeCastro.
Alex, can I ask you a question? In coastal resources, there's a $50,000 item for a town landing comprehensive survey, and it looks as though, from your charts, that's been included in the current year, if I can find it again.
Yes, it was a 2-year program, so it was $50,000 was approved for the current fiscal year and $50,000 for next year.
Who does that work? Is that Ted, or is it an outside consultant?
We will be hiring a land surveyor for that work.
Good.
And is
It's
this
survey work,
associated,
so it needs to be a licensed land surveyor.
is this associated with the current item before the Waterways Committee to look at town landings? Is it anyway?
We actually were planning this work before that topic came up. But it definitely will dovetail right in with that. Because one of the things we were aware of is the town really doesn't have, for most landings, we don't have definitive plans of exactly where those landings are.
Right.
Meets and bounds, whether or not there's been encroachment onto private property or by private property onto the town's property. So we had put this program together a couple of years ago to get those, legal surveys, if you will, of all our town landings. And it's just fortuitous that, the whole topic of the town landings and updating the town landing book that we had put together a number of years ago is all coming together at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's good timing, just good management. Okay, Alex.
Okay, so we've talked about the town landing infrastructure, which is an annual appropriation for the land side of the town landings. And then another $50,000 is requested for the design, engineering, and permitting for the Mill Creek Jetty rehabilitation. And that's all under coastal resources. And again, coastal resources is requesting $10,000 as a supplemental appropriation for truck replacement as costs have increased since it was first approved. Moving on to the Harbor Master Division, we have the annual request of $20,000 for our aids to navigation. The Mitchell River Bridge improvements requested at $100,000. We've recommended $45,000. And then three-phase electrical service for the fish pier at $35,000. And then a large item for replacement of the Harbor Master's H-24 boat at $280,000.
So, if I might, and I'm not starting with the largest amount here, but the $35,000, the three-phase electrical service for all the work we've done at the fish pier with an elevator and a lift and rehabs a couple years ago, and we're updating the electrical service on the South Jog now. We don't have three-phase anywhere down there?
No, we do not in the packing building. And this is all part of the master plan that Parr Associates completed back in 2016. We've just been every year kind of chipping away at various aspects of it. So no, we do not have three-phase power down there.
And that is useful for?
It's useful for many things: ice machines, better davits, faster davits, all those kinds of things. It will likely require that NSTAR, Eversource upgrades their transformer and whatnot. So, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, pretty much everything large nowadays requires three-phase power.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, Bob. With the ice machine, I can't imagine we wouldn't have it. But anyway, but on to the $280K for the boat replacement, H-24. Now is that us doing the job of the Coast Guard, or is this replacing a boat that we have currently that's superannuated, or what's the deal on the $280,000?
That is replacing one of our existing boats. There will be a discussion, I think it's next week, when you have your discussion on capital items.
Yep.
Regarding a new surf-capable boat.
Okay.
That is part of the larger discussion of the Coast Guard in Chatham. But this is to replace one of our existing boats. Just like vehicles, boats need to be replaced on a schedule, or else they get to the point where they cost more than they're worth. So,
is this boat fiberglass?
I believe it is today. We may be replacing it with one of the newer style with the hulls with the flotation around them.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
In your packet, I did give you a breakdown of the capital requests, since we don't have the five-year capital in the budget book right now. And you can see that we've separated out that surf-capable response boat, which is a new boat, as a separate article for a separate discussion.
okay, Alex, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Dean, go ahead.
Thank you. Alex, or Bob, I don't know if this is inclusive of only items in the capital budget or separate articles, but in the packet that you handed out, they're not numbered, so pages aren't numbered, but under natural resources, this is sort of the five-year outlook. So the department requested about $1 million this year, but the town manager has approved $395,000. But if you look at the capital program for 2025, 2026, and outward, it really jumps dramatically, 2.7 million, 1.4 million, 1.5 million, 1.6 million. I'm just trying to understand what's causing that to
A
grow.
lot of that is related to potential future dredging or beach nourishment projects. We've been very lucky getting the Army Corps of Engineers to come back on a regular basis. We've been very lucky to get the county dredge to come in. So we've done some fairly recent large dredging projects, putting the sand, on Harding's Beach and putting sand over in Cockle Cove and whatnot. But obviously, there's no guarantees that those other funding sources will remain in future out years. So we program it into the five-year projections, if you will. Doesn't mean when we actually get to that year that we'll have to spend the money, because hopefully one of these other sources like the Army Corps or whatever will have come by and, continued to do their work. But we keep hearing pretty much on a regular basis that the Army Corps is cutting back because their funding nationwide is being cut, and, they're targeting bigger, more commercial type harbors. But, we've been lucky the last couple of years to continue to get them back to Chatham, primarily for the Stage Harbor Entrance Channel. But just knowing that that is not a guarantee, we put it into the five-year capital, that may be a future need, just so there is no shock, that just like you just did, we can project out the future years what the needs will be.
Did we ever put to bed the study that Mr. Dykens had requested on the dredge, municipal dredge? I think we had an interim report at some point. Is that?
No, we will be bringing that back to the board shortly. It kind of got sidetracked, honestly, with COVID. The report has been completed. We're working with the consultant, to just kind of update some of the numbers, because some of the numbers were, a year and a half old.
Okay.
And obviously, prices have all changed. So we will be bringing that back to the board. I can tell you, we won't be recommending the town of Chatham buy a dredge.
Okay. I didn't think so. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Bob. Thank you, Dean, for rekindling that, that issue. We hadn't forgotten, Dean. Yeah. So it's funny that the study of the Mill Creek Jetty is 50 and the Mill Creek Jetty itself is 500, so.
Right, and then
Build it
below that-
bigger and longer.
Yeah, so again, as Bob mentioned, that's why we have those out there. We have, 1.5 million for potential beach nourishment,
Yep.
which is the big one.
See that, yeah.
And then, so again, items to discuss when you have your discussion on the capital items. Again, the surf boat was one of those, the Harbor Master Shellfish Storage Shop, $600,000. So those are some of the larger items that will be discussed on February 9th.
Well, we will look forward to that. Okay. Salt shed as well. Okay. Is that on natural resources, Alex, or?
That's on natural resources,
Okay.
unless you have any questions.
Okay, well, we have, yeah, okay, thank you, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the American Rescue Plan Act. This is Director Alex Halella as well. ARPA funds. Alex, we got some fun tickets. What do we got?
Thank you. And I believe that we have Kara from the county here if
Okay.
you have any specific questions for her, but I'll run through our agenda item today. So hi Kara.
Hey, Kara.
American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, designation of funds. So as you know, the town did receive direct funding as well as funding through Barnstable County. The amount allocated to Chatham from direct funding was $626,127. We've used about, I think, $18,000 of that money so far. And then through the county, we have a direct allocation to Chatham of $343,543.15. So we will have to apply to the county for our funds by December 31st, 2024, and use the funds by December 31st, 2026. To date, we have not accessed the funds, but we are looking now at our capital plan and some of the items moving forward. So you may wish to draw on some of those funds for some of these projects. We're also looking to see if the Barnstable County will be coming out with another grant program. They had a small grant program which closed on December 31st, 2022, and there was talk that they might have a large grant program for which some of our capital items might qualify. Barnstable County has gone by the federal rule as what is allowed for us to spend funds, but that was recently expanded for revenue replacement. So basically, the funds can be used for any legal purpose as decided by the municipality. But we do, look at the broadband, the water issues, wastewater issues as some of those items that first came out under the federal guidelines. So looking at the capital budget and some items that might be available to receive ARPA funding, we have the transfer station project, we have the HVAC system at Eldridge Public Library, and we've talked about the belt filter press replacement at almost $5 million. However, that is on the under the Clean Water Trust. That has been approved under the Clean Water Trust at 0% interest loans, so we might look to fund that through debt service rather than another way. And then we have some of the smaller items, the water pollution control facility, the electronic upgrades, $400,000, and then a study for additional wells, whether there's the board wants to move forward looking at additional well fields or the potential of additional wells here in Chatham. And again, Barnstable County had received $41 million. Of that, $10 million has been allocated to the 15 towns based on population. And then $5,000 was used for that competitive grant program for the small, medium-sized grant. And again, not knowing whether, if and when another grant program will be coming out, we're hopeful to that. But I would defer to Kara if you have any questions on that.
So welcome, Kara. Kara Hughes, welcome. Now, so does that leave $5 million in a potential other grant program that we might apply for, Kara? Was there 10 in total?
Well,
yeah. Welcome.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, and nice to see all of you virtually. Thank you, Alex, for your providing your overview, and I just wanted to step back for a second and just, I guess what I'll start with the county was allocated over $41 million total, and so far the county has actually already approved, the commissioners have voted to approve over 40 million of that. And, as Alex mentioned, 10 million is in the form of grants to the towns. And so far, out of that 10 million, 9 towns and via 10 different grants have already gone out the door. They're already on the street. And just to give you an example for some of the money that those grants to the different towns have gone to, and Alex did mention some of the different eligible use categories such as broadband and wastewater and others, including revenue replacement. But some of the other towns have used things for, just to give you an example, like Barnstable used it for their Main Street pump station replacement. Bourne actually decided to divide their allotment up into 2 different grants. one for the purchase of 2 custom-built Lifeline medical vehicles, and one for infrastructure and modernization of IT systems at the Bourne Public Schools. Falmouth used theirs for wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Mashpee also for a wastewater town project. Orleans for the design and construction of key improvements to the town's drainage in the Meeting House Pond sewer area project. Sandwich used theirs for clean water improvement project for the Sandwich Public Schools, and Yarmouth used theirs for Yarmouth's wastewater infrastructure design phase. And Provincetown, the most recent one, I'm skipping one more. Eastham actually used theirs for revenue replacement, which they're going to put towards most likely for some wastewater projects. And then the last grant that was just approved last week on Wednesday was for Provincetown, and that was also for a wastewater project as well. So as you can see, a lot of the towns are putting their different funding allocations towards wastewater, but again, there are different eligible use categories that it can be used for, including revenue replacement, which allows you a lot of flexibility. So, we encourage you to, go through the portal and when you're ready to decide what you want to put it in for, you have $345,543,015. That's your county allocation. So we look forward to working with you, in any way, shape, or form to answer any more specific questions as you come closer to a decision on what you'd like to use it for. So that's the $10 million. And then I know that the $5 million grant program was mentioned. That's a small and medium competitive grant program that it actually closed. The applications closed at the end of this past year in December. And the different applications, there are actually 122 applications from across the entire Cape, totaling over $40 million for a $5 million pot of money, interestingly. 40 applications were chosen to move forward, and they're currently going through an independent review process as we speak, which should be finished up by April, and then the grants should be voted on and finalized in May. So that's the competitive grant program. In addition to that, the commissioners voted on and approved $11.4 million for county projects. And those projects, run the gamut through all of the different ARPA eligible categories for the dredge, for different projects through the ponds and health and human services, et cetera, et cetera. That's $11.4 million. And that's actually going in front of the Assembly of Delegates tomorrow to be voted on and discussed in a public hearing. There's been a lot of discussion on that already. And then in addition, 11.4 million has been already allocated by the Board of Commissioners for housing. And that's where you get to the over $40 million. So that housing tranche of money is what I think Alex was speaking about when she talked about the additional grant program. So the way that will work, and that needs to be approved by the Assembly of Delegates, and once that happens, it'll go out for a formal RFP. And the way that the ordinance was passed by the commissioners, it's broken up into a number of different tranches in housing. So that is broken up into homeless and medical respite. That's $3 million out of the $11.4 million. It's $3.9 million for affordable housing. And then it's $1.5 million for, we're calling it the missing middle in workforce housing. And those projects will be considered large grants, and those will go out for a formal RFP process through the county portal once that's approved by the Assembly of Delegates. So then it needs to still move its way through the formal approval process that the $10 million went through, the $5 million went through, the county projects are going through, and then the housing will go through that as well. And that brings us to almost the total of the county allocated money.
Okay, Kara, thank you. So just to summarize, the opportunity for Chatham, we have $343,000 already coming. We have another 608 to play with, so that gets us around 950 or thereabouts. Is that a fair statement, Alex?
Yes.
And then we have the opportunity, Kara, if I understood you correctly, to apply for more monies, in particular monies for housing.
Correct. That, again, that'll be done through, if it's something that fits into areas that you're working on, that's gonna be open up through an open RFP process. Once that passes the Assembly of Delegates, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Other questions for
Well,
Kara?
just to follow up, I thought she said that in addition to the housing piece, there was another roughly $1 million, 11 million that you said was Cape projects? That's the way I thought I heard you describe it. Maybe I misapprehended.
Yeah.
12.8, there's 12.8 for county projects. Maybe the
I'm
county
sorry, I didn't mean
projects?
Cape, I meant
County.
county. I'm sorry, yes,
right.
county.
County,
And that's in
Correct.
addition to what you heard Jeff just describe, yes?
correct.
Okay, yes,
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
so there's another 12.8
Yeah.
that will be going out to towns for RFPs as well, Kara?
No.
Okay,
That is.
that's county.
Those are specific
Further.
items for county-funded projects that actually impact the whole entire Cape, like the dredge, for example.
Awesome,
The
okay.
dredge is a great example.
Good.
It's money that will go to the dredge that, supports all the different towns. It's Cape-wide projects through the county.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Nacastro has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kara. I had a question for Alex. The 626,000 that we're getting directly.
Yes.
Is that the same amount? It sounds the same to me as having been the same amount that when we were in the thick of COVID and people were asking, who's going to pay for all the additional costs we were incurring for PPE and dividers and all that. I thought we were talking 600,000 back then. Is this the same?
No, this is different. This was the direct ARPA funding. We
Okay.
did receive some of that, after COVID, but we received CARES money
Okay.
for the CARES Act, as well as we're still waiting FEMA reimbursement.
So right now, we have, as Jeff said, just shy of $1 million to think about, and 350,000 of that we have to apply for. We have to
Apply for.
apply
Right.
for?
Yes, we have to apply for the county grant through their portal, so that's the 343,000.
And these write-ups on the different categories, are these from the feds?
Yes, that's actually what I pulled off of the county website, but that is from the final rule for the ARPA funding, so that was the federal guidelines. But those are the eligible categories.
So we're looking, and I'm laughing because transfer station, 1.4 million, library, 2 million, and I know that particular one is under review. Bell filter press replacement, almost 5 million. So, and I know we're going to be looking at free cash and other sources, maybe the infamous, I think I'll get it right this time, Inflation Reduction Act may have some money in there. I don't know if anybody's heard anything about that. I know that's still in process down in Washington.
I haven't heard anything on that,
Maybe
but
we can get
also.
some money out of that too, but.
And some, I don't mean to interrupt, but we also identified, whether we can have funding for a grant writer to help us procure, use some of these funds to actually make them grow and procure grants.
Yeah.
Fiber, technology, citizen engagement. So all of those, the electronic voting system, which is hopefully citizen
Yeah.
engagement and
I'm
technology.
glad you brought that up,
No,
because we're going to hear a presentation, Mike and
Seven.
I have been on that group with the Finance Committee leadership, and I know that Stephen had requested, and the chairman's going to put it on
7th.
February 7th. We're going to have a demonstration with a recommendation from the Finance Committee group. So, and it's about in the order of 20,000, a little shy. So we can spend, if we decide we like it, if this board decides we want to go forward with it for May, then we can just buy it right now out of the 626,000?
Yes, because we have that money here, and that's revenue replacement, so we can use it for this purpose, as well as this is also citizen engagement, so it would fall under the federal
Perfect.
Do we have to go to town meeting to get that?
No,
Right, okay, thank
as
you.
long as we follow public procurement, which we will.
Yeah, great, thank you.
And then just for the additional, the county, bucket of money that, is yours, the towns, it's your money. I mean, you just have to go through the portal and enter in the information. And, the independent auditor, CLA, they just check to make sure that it meets all of the federal requirements. And then you can, receive your town money. And really, since I've been doing this, since the end of the summer, there have been some towns who have made it through, and I think 13 days is the record amount of time a town made it through, from when they put their application to when their application was finalized. So it's a pretty straightforward process, and we're happy to set up any meetings with CLA, the independent firm who's doing the reviews of these, to walk through any of your questions, Alex, that you may have, or anyone else, as you finalize what you want to put this money towards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Very, very helpful. Thank you, Alex. Any other questions on the ARPA funding? So we have plenty of places to put it, that's for sure, huh? Thank you, Kara, very much. Thanks for your patience.
Great.
Thanks for
No,
participating.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yep, you bet.
Be well.
Take care.
Take care.
You as well. Okay, our last item of business here is to announce the Monomoy Regional School District vacancy. Shauna, you want to take this one away, or want me to take it?
Sure. So we were notified by Danielle Tolley that she has resigned and from the school committee, Monomoy Regional School Committee, as a Chatham representative, and per the school agreement, the board announces the vacancy once they've been notified by the school committee, which we have, and sets a time period to receive applications, holds interviews, and then makes a joint appointment with the remaining Chatham members to the school committee.
So we're certainly announcing the vacancy. It's just now a deadline for the receipt of applications. Any thoughts here? Corey, usually weigh in. Corey?
Yeah, I mean, this is so slightly different than the situations we've had in the past, because we have 2 Chatham seats that are going to be up for re-election, or for election. The candidates will declare whether they're going to rerun or not shortly, I guess. And then we have this 3rd seat that we can fill between now and the election, but then after that, it has to be elected into the position. If I said that correctly. So I know it's going to take a little bit of time to do this. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we set a deadline, we have interviews, and how we get someone in place, the election is right around the corner, and people are going to start pulling papers as of tomorrow. I mean, officially, February 1 papers can be pulled. So I've been going back and forth this mind, and I will admit, at first I thought, okay, you know what, we'll sit tight. I'd like to set a deadline. Well, I think we have to set a deadline. We have to set a deadline. And I'd like to encourage people to step forward, because it may entice someone to come forward knowing they're going to have a very short window. At the very, very worst, they're going to get some face time to the public and express their interest. And we're going to get some people, getting some interest. So I'd like to, we'll set a deadline, encourage people to step forward, and see what kind of individuals have an interest in it, and to see what pans out. So I'd be happy to kind of be optimistic on this one and see where it shakes out.
All right, thank you, Corey. Mr. Nicastro?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, we've had, difficulties in the past when we've tried to fill these positions. So, last time we set a deadline of 30 days, and I don't think we should do that this time. I think it should be shorter, because we'd like to get someone in place. They're only going to be in the position for a couple of months. I mean, is that an issue, Corey?
We have February
My
school
only thought is
vacation.
this
We have
school
February school
vacation week
vacation. so
sneaking
that-
up, so
yeah.
you set a deadline, which is actually the 3rd full week in February, so but then again, I mean, you worry about school vacation week, figuring those are the candidates that are going to step forward. Maybe there's candidates that are, not going to be impacted by school vacation week. So,
3 weeks?
Yeah, Jeff,
Shereen,
I
yep.
think we just have to move forward and hopefully work this out so that we can probably take a vote by the 28th of February. Is that what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and then encourage people to take out papers to run.
Yeah, we have the 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th, yeah. Yep. Mr. Nicastro?
Can we also, if it's possible, have the interviews, because we have to get the school committee in with us, and the vote the same night? We could schedule, is that possible? We could schedule, I don't know how many people are going to apply, but let's say we have a couple of people apply, we could have the interviews. We could start the select board meeting a little earlier, have the school committee meet with us right at the beginning, do the interviews, and then take the vote,
So we'll shoot for the 21st? Is that what we're going to shoot for?
whatever.
Is that palatable, acceptable? Okay,
We won't need a motion.
we do?
So I move we set a deadline for February 21st for applicants to submit to our executive secretary.
Super.
Second.
Okay, vote. Corey?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Serene?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Chair says aye. So we've announced and we got a timeline. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Corey?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Serene?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
And the chair says aye as well. Thank you very much. Good night, Chatham.